morning. We will begin. My name is Bonnie Jean Flom, and I am a member of the Board of Directors of the local League of Women Voters. I want to thank you all for being here. It's so gratifying to see a full house. Thank you. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We're pleased this morning to have with us timekeepers from St. Olaf College from the American Conversations class, so thank you very much. We'd especially like to thank the League of Women Voters Northfield Cannon Falls Voter Service Committee, and especially their co-chairs, Jean Agee and Terry Stead. For your reference, we do have sample ballots posted in the hallway, so if you would find that useful, you can find them there. I'd also like to mention that this morning's forum is being streamed live and will be available on our League website afterwards as well. We will be taking audience questions, so if you need a card, raise your hand. If you finished a card, put it up, and we'll have people coming to pick them up. And I'm very pleased to be able to introduce to you our moderator for today. Her name is Bree Mackey, and she is a member of the Winona League of Women Voters, and she is a trained moderator that we are very happy to welcome back to Northfield. She worked with us during the primary election as well. So without further ado, please welcome Bree Mackey to today's forum.
Good morning. Again, my name is Bree Mackey, and I'll be your moderator for this morning's event. And this might be redundant, some of the things I'm going to talk about for those of you who were here earlier, but I'd like to just go ahead and repeat some of it as well for those who have joined us. The League Forum is sponsored by, today's forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Northfield and Cannon Falls, so thank them for doing this. We're very pleased to welcome those of you in our live audience here today, and we also want to take time to welcome those citizens who might be watching via the online streaming event. We also want to thank the City of Northfield for allowing us to hold this forum in their council chambers here at City Hall. This forum is intended to provide the voters with information so that they may make informed choices on the ballot. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not of the League. We would also like to take time again to thank our timekeepers. They are students from St. Olaf College, and they're enrolled in the American Conversations class. We are grateful for their participation in this democratic process. I want to go over a few of the ground rules, and our candidates also have been told them and given this information, but just to share that with the audience. The audience is expected to be courteous to the candidates. This is a live broadcast, and the audience is asked not to express support or opposition during the forum and to hold their applause till the end. We'd like to remind everybody, please turn off your cell phones. Photography and videotaping is not authorized by the League of Women Voters. This forum may not be taped or edited, but must be broadcast in its entirety and in accordance with all FCC regulations. The candidates may not use any part of this forum in broadcast in their campaign ads or literature. We will be accepting questions from the audience. If you do have a question, we do have index cards available for you. Please write your questions down, and League members will collect them and give them to the screening committee. Questions which are hostile, embarrassing, inappropriate, or of personal nature will not be asked. Questions on similar topics will be grouped so that we may ask broad questions in a lot of different topics. And all those will be done prior to me getting those questions. The League of Women Voters will, within the time constraints, try to address every topic that you would like to have questions asked. All questions will then become property of the League of Women Voters. Candidates do not know questions in advance. There will be no opening statements. Candidates will each have 1 minute to answer each question. At the conclusion of the forum, each candidate will have an opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. Candidates are required to strictly observe the time limits. When candidates have 15 seconds remaining for their response, a warning card will be displayed. And when time is expired, they'll hear a signal and the timekeeper will display the stop sign. Please finish your sentence in a quickly manner. Thank you. And I really am a stickler on that, so do your best. Now I would like to introduce the candidates for the Rick County Attorney position, Paul Beaumaster and John Fossum. The candidates have agreed to allow me to call them by their first names. And we will begin with some prepared questions from the league, but again, a reminder, fill out your questions in the audience and turn them in so we can ask public questions as well. The candidates drew straws to determine who will respond first. And with that, the first question will go to John. In the role of county attorney, who is your client?
Well, in the role of county attorney, you actually do not have a client. And that is, I guess that is one of the issues. The county attorney has an obligation to seek justice. That is what the ABA prosecution standards say. That's what the Minnesota Rules of Professional Responsibility say. You do not, at least when you're prosecuting cases, you do not have a client in the case. You are not there to represent any particular person or their interest. Your function is to seek justice as a criminal prosecutor. In the role of county attorney, when you are advising the county board is your client, and you have an obligation to provide independent advice and information to the board in order to help them reach proper conclusions. And so you are obligated, of course, to provide relevant and proper advice to the county board. But as a prosecutor, you do not have a client. You have an obligation to justice and to the public as a whole.
Thank you. Paul, 1 minute, please.
Well, my client is the citizens of Rice County, and when I'm prosecuting, it's the state of Minnesota. That's who I represent. The title isn't Paul Beaumaster versus, it's the state of Minnesota versus. And that's who I represent day in and day out here in Rice County since 1999. Also, on the civil side, I represent the county board, the department heads, the individual employees if they're being sued because of their official capacity. So it really depends on what role I'm playing. There's two roles in the county attorney's office, the civil side and the criminal side. As I said, the criminal side, you're representing the state of Minnesota and the people of Rice County. In the civil side, it depends. Different departments, different roles that I play in advising them, in reviewing their contracts, require me to represent all of Rice County employees and departments and committees. So it really depends on what you're asking as far as who my client is, as to what role I'm playing.
Thank you. And the next question will start with Paul. How would you investigate a matter, and what factors would help you to decide whether or not it is or is not appropriate to further investigate, to provide further investigation or prosecution?
Well, on the investigative side, the county attorney has no investigative authority. That rests with law enforcement. And so our referrals are made by law enforcement agencies throughout the county. And also the state. Sometimes we'll even get a referral from a federal agency for a local crime that occurred. So there's really no investigating on my part. I do send things back for further investigation if we don't believe that the elements of a crime have been met and we believe there may be further information, or law enforcement, after consulting with them, thinks there's further investigation that should be done. Will bring that back to us then after they've done whatever follow-up investigation. But as far as deciding whether to charge or not charge, we look simply at the facts that are presented to us. We look at the elements of the crime, and then we make a determination of whether or not, given all of the considerations of the law, constitutional constraints, and the crime, whether or not we have enough to go forward.
Thank you. And John?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of space between us on that one. It is not the function of the county attorney to go out and look for things to investigate. It is the function of the county attorney to deal with what evidence comes forward in a case, what comes to the office from law enforcement agencies. It's also to make sure that when law enforcement comes in with a case and says, we think this is a case, that the case is carefully and fully and thoroughly evaluated. And if there are holes in it, then you can send the case back for further investigation. And you can say, if we had this might be a case. This is what we think you need to do, and we can cooperate and collaborate with law enforcement in terms of how to make a case where they might not have one, but it is not the obligation, it's not the function of the county attorney to go out and direct what cases should be investigated.
Thank you. And John, we'll start with you on the response for the next question. The county attorney obviously works closely with law enforcement, but what other groups do you or would you work with to improve safety in Rice County?
Well, in addition to law enforcement, we'd be certainly working with various advocacy groups, and I know that the Hope Center and others have had collaborative relationships with the county attorney's office in the past, and I think that's something we'd certainly continue in terms of how do we keep people safe and what sort of issues are there in the county that need to be dealt with. What can we do to improve public safety? What can we do to improve things looking forward? And I think there's a number of different groups, various advocacy groups that already exist, and programs that we can be involved in that that would help improve public safety. And I think there's quite a catalog that we could go through, but I think there's a number of groups that we can work with.
Thank you. Paul?
Well, I do work with law enforcement, and we do have a great working relationship, and the collaborations that we do, not just between myself and those individual departments, but has, since I got here, been one that we all work together. Law enforcement now meets quarterly, all the chiefs and the sheriff, the prison, the state patrol, DNR, and we meet to discuss what public safety issues are of concern to all of us and what we can do to do a better job and to do things in a cooperative manner. And I think that brought about our drug task force here in Rice County. We're one of the few just single county task force, but we worked so well together we really didn't feel we needed to try to expand. Also, the nonprofit organizations that we work with, Hope Center, I have all those already doing collaboratives. The Rice County Safe Roads Coalition, the Rice County Healthy Communities, Rice County Chemical Health Coalition, we work closely with as well.
Thank you. Paul, we'll start with you on the next question. If, as county attorney, you encounter wrongdoing, a miscarriage of justice, or violation of the law, either on the part of law enforcement officers or at the hands of county employees, how would you handle it?
Well, if it's one of my employees or a county employee, I would be reporting that to an outside agency who would be doing the investigating. If it is a outside law enforcement agency, I may be able to refer that to a Rice County agency for investigating. If it is a Rice County agency, I would obviously seek outside investigative agencies to look at it. And we have done that in the past, and it unfortunately does happen that we have to make those referrals. I think the public deserves to be assured that there's not some sort of internal cover-up, that they need to know that this is being independently investigated by somebody from the outside. And I think that brings a better result for everyone, not just the person who's being investigated, but also for the general public knowing that it was fairly done.
Thank you. John?
Well, and what's important is to make sure that there's not a conflict of interest or even the appearance of a conflict of interest in an investigation. And so, yeah, that's right. We look at either bringing in an independent prosecution or investigation agency, and that's done really routinely throughout the state, that you bring in investigators from a different county or prosecutors from a different county in order to deal with a case where it looks like there's a conflict, where it would look like the office is engaging in a cover-up or would have interest or an incentive to do that. You want to make sure that we're not giving that appearance, and that's when you would be going to look outside the agency and say, we need help with this. We need someone from the outside to make sure that this is done properly and thoroughly, and there's no appearance of a conflict of interest.
Thank you. John, we'll start with you now. How would you make the county's attorney's office more effective and efficient?
Well, in terms of being more effective, I think one of the things we would focus on is just to make sure that when we're prosecuting, we are both prosecuting the proper cases that need to be prosecuted, and also making sure that the cases that we're prosecuting, we are prepared to prosecute and that we're going to do a good job with. And so we want to make sure that we're preparing all of our cases for trial, that we're getting things ready to go, and that when we have to go to trial, we intend to and plan to do a good job with those cases. And that we cannot disclaim responsibility for our cases once they're submitted to the jury. We have an obligation to make sure that we are taking our cases seriously, that we're taking our work seriously, and that we're presenting the cases in such a way that everyone understands that it's a serious case and we mean to do a good job. So I think we would focus both on trial preparation in terms of the criminal cases and
Thank you. Paul.
Well, fortunately, my office is already very effective. Crime is down here in Rice County, and it's down substantially. One of the great areas that we've seen a huge drop in is our DWIs, and I credit that to a lot of the partners that I work with in coalitions, mainly the Rice County Safe Roads Coalition. We went from having over 550 DWIs a year down to just around 200 last year. More importantly, though, we went from having double-digit deaths on our roadways from alcohol-related crashes down to just having one last year. That is quite an accomplishment, and that's because we're an effective prosecutor office, and we're also effective on prevention and education. As far as efficiency, one of the areas that we are going to need to work on, as the courts move to paperless systems, we are also working on moving to paperless. We're already paperless on our charging. We're going to be working to be completely paperless on our office files, and that's going to be a huge efficiency. We've already had huge savings in our discovery by becoming more efficient. My office is always thinking lean, and how do we do our jobs better and more effectively?
Thank you. Paul, we'll start with you on this question. And you did both give responses to a similar question, so it might feel redundant, but would still like to ask this question, please. Do you believe the county attorney has an obligation to independently investigate suspected criminal activity, or is that solely the role of law enforcement and police investigators? Please explain.
That is solely the role of police investigators or other law enforcement agencies in the state to do those investigations. And, if it was a conflict case, obviously that would be something we'd be sending out. Fortunately, I have many relationships outside of Rice County with other county attorneys' offices, other law enforcement agencies outside the county, and have those connections that I can call upon to come in and do those investigations. It would be inappropriate, and the courts have made clear it's inappropriate for the county attorney to be the investigative instrument. That is not the role that we play. We play on the law enforcement side of it, the prosecution side of it, and we can certainly train law enforcement, we can certainly give them advice, but we're not the investigative agency.
Thank you. John?
Well, and I would agree with that, but I do want to address what Paul said in his earlier answer. This is the fourth time we've had one of these forums. I think we've had more forums now than the governor candidates and the senator candidates. But he said that crime is down in Rice County and DWIs are down in Rice County, which is true. But crime is down nationwide. Crime has declined 13% nationwide over the last decade. So Paul wants to take credit for nationwide trends because they also happen in Rice County. He said that DWIs are down in Rice County. Well, DWIs are down in Rice County, but DWIs are down statewide. DWIs are down statewide by 8,000 since 2006. 8,000 a year fewer DWIs in Rice County. So it's not across the state. So it's not surprising that DWIs are down in Rice County. And so Paul wants credit for things that he has not accomplished. And I think what I'd like to do is talk about how the office works instead.
Thank you. John, we'll start with you. And this question might be a little confusing because I'm going to ask it in two different ways. When you convene a grand jury, what is your understanding of the county attorney's role? Versus when a grand jury is convened, what is the role of the county attorney?
Well, I think that the role of the county attorney is to convene a grand jury when it's appropriate to do so, and also when you are working with the grand jury to make sure that they have the information and advice that they need. And if they ask questions, to respond to them appropriately. If they need information and want to pursue their investigative role, because the county attorney, or the grand jury has a unique investigative role, that we are providing them with the tools to do that. Grand juries actually have subpoena power. And so if they are seeking more information, then it's the obligation to cooperate with them and make sure that they get the information they need. But the primary obligation is to make sure that you are providing accurate legal advice and information to the grand jury and presenting them with the evidence they need to make their decision.
Thank you. Paul?
Well, I'll take this opportunity to go back to address the question that he didn't answer with his own answer to my response. But crime is down here in Rice County, and it is down nationwide, but we're not an average county. Our demographics are very different. We're a county that is growing. We're a young county. If we look at what we're at, we're the 13th largest county in the state of Minnesota. We're not an average county, and we're doing better. Under my opponent's attack upon the coalitions I work with, that we make no difference, we would still be on the deadliest county list if we're just riding the wave of demographics. We are not. With regard to the grand jury, the grand juries are convened every year. New grand jury pools put forward, and when there's a case to put before them, we tell the court, we bring the case in, we provide legal advice for them. If they want to see witnesses, they tell us. We then present those witnesses, and they make the final decisions as to what they wish to indict or not indict.
Thank you. I just want to take a minute for people in the audience, if they are interested in asking a question, to try to get those on the index sheets, and league members will collect those. And just a reminder to our candidates, this is a forum, not a debate, so let's stick with the questions that I'm asking, please, so that the audience can get the answers that they're looking for.
Amen.
Do you feel... I'm sorry, Paul, we're going to start with you. Do you feel staffing levels at the Rice County Attorney's Office are adequate, and are budgets able to meet the department's goals? And if there is changes needed, what would you suggest?
I do believe our staffing is adequate. At this time, we have been able to bring our cases through the system, whether that's civil or criminal, in a timely manner. We have a great clearance rate. And so I put together this year's budget and the 16 estimates based upon what we're seeing in trends. And as I said, we're seeing trends of decreasing crimes, which means that we can better deal with the cases we have with the staff we have. We're also seeing more efficiencies with technology, and making sure that we're keeping up with that technology is probably more important than just making sure we have more staff. The Rice County Board is not in favor of adding staff willy-nilly, so you really have to build a case for when you want to add staff. But we do look every day at how we're doing things, and everybody in my office is responsible for doing that. And we come up with ways that we can do things more efficiently and better every day. Thank you. John?
Well, I haven't seen any indication that it's not sufficient to meet the needs of the office. They seem to be able to address the caseloads and with the resources that they have, and I certainly wouldn't see looking for a way to increase the budget in the near term.
Thank you. John, we'll start with you on the next question. Criminal cases get all the press, but are only one aspect of the job of a county attorney. What experiences and skills do you have regarding the other obligations of the county attorney and the office?
Well, I have 20 years of practice, 21 years of practice in both criminal defense and civil litigation, and so I have a wide background of experience. I've handled just about every type of case that lawyers handle. I've been in federal court. I've handled bankruptcy cases. I've done a number of different things in terms of both civil litigation, employment litigation, and so I have a broad background of experience. I've also been involved with civil rights litigation as well. So I have a broad depth and background of experience in many areas of law, including contracts and transactional work. There isn't anything in the work of the county attorney's office that I haven't dealt with it at some point or another.
Thank you, Paul.
The laws that the county operates under are very unique. Counties are subdivisions of the state of Minnesota, therefore we are statutory. The statutes we deal with for each and every department that we have, providing 120 different mandated services to the people of Rice County, require a broad knowledge of those statutes and the ability to be in-house counsel for each one of those departments, and understanding each one of the statutes that they operate under and understanding the laws that apply is an important aspect of the job. I am the only candidate who has had that experience of advising every one of those departments, including the county board. I am the only candidate that has the ability to train new assistants as they come and go here in Rice County and how to do that. And that is an important aspect of the job, is being able to give sound legal advice to every one of those employees, every one of those department heads, and the county board, day in and day out, as they call you, 24/7, some departments.
Thank you. Paul, we'll start with you. What would you consider the most important aspect in accepting or refusing a case?
The facts obviously are the most important aspects. When we receive a referral from a law enforcement agency, we have to thoroughly review the reports that we receive, the facts that we have. I tell people our cases are always the best when we first get them, because that is usually the maximum information we're going to have on that case. And in reviewing that, taking the elements of the crime and looking to see whether or not there are sufficient facts to prove each one of those elements beyond a reasonable doubt, and then decide, is there a likelihood that we can do that based on the evidence that we have with each one of those elements. Every one of my assistants do that day in and day out when they're reviewing criminal cases as they come through the office and making those charging decisions. And when they do that, they believe when they go to trial, they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Thank you. John?
Well, in the context of the question, yes, you should be making sure in a criminal case that you do have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, that you have the witnesses lined up, that you have the evidence that you need. And if it's not there, but it could be a case, then the important thing is to send it back for further investigation and to explain to the officer where we would need to fill the holes in that case. If you have evidence beyond and proof beyond a reasonable doubt, then you should be able to take the case and take it to trial successfully. And that's what the function of the county attorney's office ultimately is in terms of prosecution, is to take a case, make sure that you have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and then when you take it to trial, prosecute it successfully.
John, we'll start with you. What do you see as an advantage in being an incumbent elected attorney versus what would you see as an advantage of being a newly elected attorney?
Well, I think that change is often a breath of fresh air in terms of public jobs. Paul's been the county attorney for 15 years, though, as the Northfield News noted this morning, we haven't had a contested election for county attorney since 1990, so 24 years since we've even had an election for county attorney. I think the advantage is coming in is that we can take a look at the structure of the office and the things that need to be changed and how things are working and where they need to work better. I think the problem with being the incumbent is that you just keep things going the way they always have and don't necessarily look at the things that need to be changed. Paul would have you believe that because he's been in the office, he's the only one that can do the work. The truth is that lawyers learn things and that we can go and find the law that we need to find. The point of being a lawyer isn't what you can say off the top of your head, but what you can explain and
Thank you,
explore.
John. Paul, 1 minute, please.
Well, I think being the incumbent does give me knowledge that, as my opponent John has pointed out, he will have to learn. He'll be starting with a zero base on the understanding of the office. I do not think anybody who's worked with me throughout these 15 years would say that I am complacent and that I think, well, things are going fine, so we don't need to do anything else. My goal every day is to try to improve public safety here in Rice County. I do that by finding new and better ways to do things, by collaborating with the partners that I've developed over the last 15 and a half years. I think all of them would tell you that we always are looking to do things better. I can point to several examples with our SMART team, with our domestic violence court that we're looking at, with our flare-up project that we're looking to start. Those are efforts to try to do a better job and try to make Rice County a safer place. And that's not just saying we're going to keep doing the same old stuff. We're going to keep finding a better way to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Paul, we'll start with you on the next question, and it's in regards to drug court. Please tell us your opinion on the progress with the drug court system in the county, and would you continue to support it?
We've made great progress just getting the grant to start the drug court. But before that, we're already have a policy where we look with first-time drug offenders at a stayed sentence so they don't end up with a felony on their records, and that we look to rehabilitate those first-timers right off the bat. What drug court is designed for are the individuals whose addiction is propelling them into criminal conduct. And that is what drug court addresses, is how do we break that cycle and get them ready for a lifetime of recovery. I think it holds great promise for Rice County and those individuals who are trapped in that addiction cycle, where they, oftentimes are caught, sent to prison, they do their time in prison, come back out and get right back to where they were on their addiction habit. By having them stay here, we save the money of not incarcerating, but also we give them an opportunity to get back on track, be ready for a lifetime of recovery. And I think in the long run, we're all better off, safer, and it will save us more money.
Thank you. John?
Well, I would intend to support the drug court. Drug courts have a long history of being effective. Drug court started in Miami back in 1989 and has sort of spread across the country. Hennepin County brought the first drug court to Minnesota in 1996. In 2002, Dodge County got a drug court, and so Rice County is catching up with that. The problem that I understand with the current functioning of the drug court in Rice County is that there's only a few people in it, that there's only, I think, 3 people currently in the drug court, and that the funding is based on the idea of having at least 25. And so we need to make sure that we're getting the people into the drug court that need to be there who will benefit from it. It does, as Paul said, benefit the community because a lot of crime is based on addiction issues and mental health issues, and those are all wrapped up, and drug court is one of the places where we could deal with that. We just need to make sure that we're using it effectively and sufficiently.
Thank you. John, we'll start with you on the next question. Most citizens are not well informed about the role of the county attorney's office and their responsibilities. What would you do to try to correct this?
Well, one thing I've done already is have an election when we haven't had one for 24 years. People have been asking me now for months, what is the role, what's the county attorney do, and why do we do it? And I think just by having this election and getting this information out in the public, we've already done a lot to raise the awareness in Rice County as to what the county attorney is, what the county attorney should do, and what we should think about when evaluating our county attorney. And so I think I've done a lot already, and I guess I would continue to try and share information with the public and make sure that people understand what the county attorney's office is doing, what the goals are going forward, and to make sure that people think about law enforcement and the county attorney's office, and also their role in the community, because most people don't think about the county attorney's office unless they run into it.
Thank you. Paul?
Well, I've had regular outreaches that I've been doing. Even this morning, I walked down Main Street and was asking merchants how things are going, and was able to educate one on our check diversion program, and she was going to be calling them and getting signed up for it, one of the new merchants on Main Street. I do monthly articles in the Faribault and the Northfield papers. I'm also on the radio in Faribault and Northfield. I also work with partners and different volunteer organizations in our county and here in Northfield to try to let them know what I do day in and day out. I do crime prevention programs for seniors, for any organization that would like me to come in and speak to them. I've spoken at Rotary, the Lions Club, and I think those are ways that I can get out and let people know what I do and how they can help. And really, I think public safety is not just the job of the county attorney or law enforcement, it's all of our jobs.
Thank you, Paul. We'll start with you on the next question. Please discuss how the county attorney works with other departments within Rice County.
Well, we work very closely with all the other departments. Our department and IT are probably two of the departments that work with every single department in the county. Having a close relationship and having an open door policy and making sure they all have my cell number as well as my direct dial number is important. I try to cultivate those relationships. I make sure I check in on a regular basis with the department heads and just line employees to see how things are going. I also have the opportunity to meet with the commissioners on a regular basis as well as the administrator. We work very closely with the other department heads on our monthly meetings. We come up with things that we need as far as projects for the county and projects that we can do together and save efficiencies, particularly on training our staff. We just had one the other day on how to be more customer service orientated.
Thank you. John?
Well, the county attorney's office, of course, interacts with all of the departments in terms of litigation and avoiding litigation. Some departments are more involved in that than others in terms of human services. There's issues of commitment cases. There's issues of how you deal with the mental health cases, the child protection cases, and making sure that the interests of the county are protected, and how we best protect public safety and the safety of families in looking at those cases and avoiding problems where we can and dealing with them where we have to. And I think there's a lot of interaction there between the county attorney's office and the rest of the county offices.
Thank you. John, we'll start with you. And before we do, again, probably a last call on questions. If anybody has questions in the audience, please hold them up and somebody will collect them. John, how would you make a decision on whether to appeal a decision?
Well, I think it would depend on what kind of case it is, but I think you would appeal it if you think there's a very important issue in terms of doing so. What are you going to accomplish with the appeal? And if you think it's winnable. The vast majority of appeals are affirmed, meaning most of the time the appellant loses. In fact, I heard, I've heard people say that the function of the Court of Appeals is to make sure that the appellant is always denied, always loses. But that is, so you have to understand that when you are appealing, when you're making that appeal, you have a low chance of success. So you need to make sure that you've got good issues, that you've got something worth going after. And then when you are in a criminal case, you also have to understand if it's a pretrial appeal for the state that you're on the hook for the attorney's fees for the other side. So you should make a business decision whether or not it's cost effective to do so.
Thank you, Paul. Or excuse me. Paul, your turn.
Well, Here in Rice County, we have an appellate attorney that will review whether or not a case should be appealed or a response to an appeal that's being brought by a defendant or another party against us. We also have great contacts throughout the state with other county attorneys that we can consult with them and see if they have any opinion on whether or not it should be appealed. When you're dealing with the criminal side of it, many times cases will have a statewide impact, and it's important to get that input from other county attorneys to make a determination. Is this the case that we want to take up on this particular issue? Because it might make precedent as far as setting new law. And in those cases, we do work closely with the County Attorneys Association, who then will also write a brief many times as an amicus brief. In that context, my appellate attorney, works closely with other county attorneys' offices to get their input, and we hopefully will be bringing cases that we can win.
Thank you. We'll start with you then on the next question. What have you done to reduce crime in Rice County?
Well, as I pointed out, we work with other individuals in Rice County. We work with law enforcement. We work with Hope Center. We work with the Rice County Chemical Health Coalition. In working with the Rice County Safe Roads Coalition towards zero death, we have had great success in bringing down the crime rates here in Rice County. As I said, we are not a typical county. We're one of the larger counties in the state of Minnesota. Our demographics are very different than the rest of the states or the nations. We're one of the most diverse counties in the state as well. We have one of the safest cities in the state of Minnesota here in Northfield. We've done a great deal of things, and the partners I work with work tirelessly to do those efforts, such as Sober Cab, the interlock system we were a pilot project for. Now it's throughout the state, and I believe that has brought down our DWI rates statewide, not just here in Rice County. We also work with our partners in ways that we can bring down the use of drugs here with our youth, and in our surveys we found it's working.
Thank you. John?
Well, I guess I'm not sure I understand the basis of the question. Maybe Paul can tell us which specific crimes he prevented on which days. I mean, even Batman doesn't prevent crimes, he fights them. And so the idea that you can somehow prevent crime by having committee meetings is a little, it's hard to follow. What we're not getting is the causation. And you can do things, there are important things to do to try and prevent crime, but you can't show that you have actually prevented crime. Crime is up, crime is down, but crime is down, again, nationwide. And so the idea that the county attorney himself has caused this to happen, there's just no empirical evidence to support that.
Thank you. John, we'll start with you on the next question. How important is a personal sense of justice in performing the role and responsibilities of a county attorney?
Well, I would say that it is important because the function of the county attorney's office and the function of a prosecutor is to achieve justice. So you have to understand first what justice is. It's not necessarily personal justice, though. It is justice for society. And so you have to balance all of the interests involved and evaluate what the ends of justice are. And maybe that's in terms of evaluating the appropriate sentencing. Maybe that's in terms of evaluating how the case needs to go forward. And so I think having a sense of justice and having an understanding of what justice is certainly very important. I don't think any amoral person or a person who doesn't understand what justice is could function as county attorney or as a prosecutor generally, but you do have to understand how things might work and what justice would be in a specific case.
Thank you. Paul?
Justice is what every prosecutor looks for. We want to bring defendants to justice and bring justice to crime victims. And in doing that, we do bring defendants before the court. How we resolve those cases in a just and fair way is important. And when we do have situations where we may need to do a stay, when we may need to dismiss a case. Doing the right thing is what I tell my assistants they should do every day. You're here to seek truth and justice, do the right thing. And when you're reviewing your cases, when you're making your charging decisions, when you're making your plea offers, make sure that you're trying to do justice for everyone involved, not just rubber stamping, our guidelines, but looking at the facts of your case. I do think every prosecutor in my office and every attorney in my office believes fairness and justice is what they're there to deliver. And I think they do day in and day out, and they have been since 1999 when I was first county attorney.
Thank you. Paul, we'll start with you. What question would you like to ask your opponent on why they are seeking this office?
What experience have you done in order to prepare for being Rice County Attorney?
Thank you. John?
Well, the question I would ask Paul is, do you think that your record shows that you have done the best work possible over the last 15 years, that you have respected the rights of the accused, and that you have properly prepared all of your cases for trial, and that you have prosecuted the cases appropriately so that when you are going to trial, you are prepared to trial and prepared for trial and prepared to win?
Thank you. John, we'll start with you. What leadership positions are you currently involved in, either locally or statewide, and what recognition are you most proud of?
Well, I'm currently I'm chair of the Northfield Enterprise Center. I've been a president of the Northfield Historical Society. I've been involved in a number of boards and leadership positions. I was chair of the criminal law section of the Minnesota State Bar Association. I have been involved in a number of committees and projects over the years, doing lots of different things, both for the community and for our profession. I am a board-certified criminal law specialist. That means that a panel of experts, of other board-certified attorneys, reviewed my trial record, reviewed my work as an attorney. They reviewed transcripts that I've done, transcripts of direct and cross-examinations, and evaluated my ethical conduct over the years and found that I am worthy of that distinction. Now, fewer than 3% of lawyers have ever achieve certification status, and so that's something that I'm quite proud of.
Paul?
I have been the president of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association. I've been on the board of governors for the Minnesota State Bar Association. I have also been the president of the Rice County Bar Association, and other organizations that I've shown leadership in would be, I've been on the YMCA board, am currently on the YMCA board. I am currently on the Rice County Historical Society board and been their past president. I have been chair of the Minnesota County Computer Cooperative board. So I've had many opportunities to show leadership throughout the state. Most proud of, I've received the highest award for excellence in leadership from the Minnesota County Attorneys Association last year, along with my office, and also this year, the Minnesota State Bar Association's highest award for a prosecutor, the award for excellence in leadership there. So I'm proud of those. One of the other things I'm proud of, I guess, is...
You'll have to hold that. Next question. How is prosecuting a land use case different from criminal cases?
Well, in the land use, this is mine, right? I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry, Paul. Yes.
In a land use case, really what we're trying to achieve, if it's a violation of our ordinance, is compliance. And we use a lot of this continuance for dismissals and stays in those cases for that very reason, that our goal is to get the person back in compliance with the statutory or the legislative or ordinance that they're in violation of, whether that be they plowed in the grass strip, or whether that be they're in violation of their conditional use permit. The compliance part of it is probably the most important part of that prosecution, because we want to make sure that they can still use their land as long as they're using it in the way that statute or ordinance requires them to use it. And typically in those cases, we end up with a resolution long before we're at a trial stage. Those are usually taken care of at a first appearance stage.
Thank you. John?
So specifically, the question is actually about land use cases as criminal law, as criminal violations of land use. Is that really the question?
Yeah. How is prosecuting a land use case different from a criminal in the sense of what we feel that is case?
And I think the answer then does go to effectively a question about how do you seek justice and what is the appropriate result. The result in terms of how are we protecting our waterways, how are we protecting our community, then we are looking for ways to make sure that we're achieving those goals rather than putting people into jail or making them pay large fines for something. It is, again, about the justice and seeking justice in each individual case, and that's what we'd be looking for.
Thank you. And now this will be our last question in the forum piece before we move on to closing statements. By what standard do you measure the effectiveness of a county attorney? And that goes to John first.
Well, I think there are a lot of standards. I think that the function of the county attorney is to make sure that they are appropriately handling cases, that they're appropriately prosecuting cases, that they are doing well, and that people who come into contact with the court system, the jurors, the victims, the police, do not feel like their time has been wasted, and that they are coming to court for no good reason, that they are sitting there going to trial and not getting a result in the case and feel like their time is wasted. I've talked to a lot of jurors who feel like their time has been wasted by this county attorney office. And so I think there's a lot of measures for it, but we should be making sure that our county attorney conducts the conduct of the county attorney office is appropriate and really above reproach, and also that they are seriously taking their obligations and making sure that all of their work is done correctly.
Thank you. Paul?
Well, a good measurement is crime down. Are you enforcing the laws? Are you doing anything to prevent crime or educate people on how to stop crime? In my case, I believe we're doing all of those. We have kind of a three-legged stool of credible enforcement, education, and prevention. And it does work. And I think people see that it works. If you live here in Northfield, you are living in one of the safest cities in the state of Minnesota. That is, I think, a good measure of, are things going well? If you look at our high school surveys, you'll see on all indicators, drug use is going down, tobacco use is going down. Those are important indicators, and that's what you look for. Are you moving the needle? Are things going in the right direction? Are your crime rates going in the right direction? Particularly given our demographics, we're a very diverse, very rapidly growing county, and that does mean we are having issues, but we're working on them, and we're working on prevention and education and credible enforcement.
Thank you. We're nearing the end of this forum, and I'm going to ask each of the candidates to provide a 2-minute closing statement. Again, the 15-second card will go up when your time is nearing the end, so stay within those constraints. We will begin with Paul. Paul, 2 minutes.
Well, I'd like to thank the League for having this today, and it's been a great experience, so I appreciate that. Thank you. And our moderator, thank you. I have been the Rice County Attorney since 1999. Since that time, we've seen continued improvement in our crime statistics, particularly in the area of DWIs. We're off the deadliest county list. We went from having double-digit deaths on our roadways to having just one single alcohol-related death last year. That is a great accomplishment. It's been accomplished with the work of many people, many partners, working together towards the common goal of how do we make Rice County a safer place. I'd also like the people to know that I have an award-winning staff. They do a great job. They're prepared for their cases. They try the hard cases. They don't try the easy cases. The ones that go to trial are the hard cases. And yet, our rates for acquittals are anywhere from 0 to 1% year in and year out. We are not losing all of our cases, as some people have suggested. Our acquittal rates, on average, go less than 1%. With regard to other programs that we're doing that I think have been helpful is collaborating with people to take on the issues of sexual assault, take on the issues of domestic violence, and to take on the issues of drugs in our community. All three of those are issues that in the next 4 years I will continue to work on. I will continue to work and collaborate with the partners that I have already developed programs with, and we will make those issues priorities. I would like to say in closing that I do a good job. My office does a great job for the people of Rice County, and I'd like to ask each of you for your vote. I emphasize I love doing my job, and I hope I can have your vote.
Thank you, Paul. John, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Well, I went to kindergarten in this room, so I was expecting a little more name calling, but I'm glad we didn't get there. And I just would like to say that I'm really a longtime resident of the community, and so I'm running for office because I care about the community. Paul says he has a 1% acquittal rate. That's just not accurate. That's not reliable. 1% of all the cases go to acquittal. Nationwide, 95% of criminal cases end because there is a guilty plea. 95% of convictions are because of a guilty plea. 5% of cases go to trial nationwide. In Rice County, from May of 2013 to May of 2014, this county attorney office tried 11 felony trials. They got 3 convictions. 6 of the cases were dismissed, or 6 of the cases were acquittals. 2 of them were dismissed after they picked a jury, and the jury was seated. In looking at the other cases, the other years that we've had information available, the Faribault Daily News wrote an article in February of 2008 saying that this office had they had 5 convictions out of 9 felony trials in 2005. In 2006, they had 5 convictions out of 20 felony trials. And in 2007, they had 6 convictions out of 18 felony trials. If you total that all up, that's 58 felony trials, or 58 serious criminal trials and 19 convictions. That's a 33% conviction rate. 67% of the cases that this office takes to trial, they do not get a conviction, and that.
Thank you, Don. Sorry, 2 minutes goes fast. I'd like to thank each one of you candidates for their participation in the forum, and I appreciate a friendly, informative event. The League of Women Voters also wants to thank all of you who are in attendance here at City Hall and those who might be watching the forum, streaming live, or archived online. I'd also like to thank our timekeepers today. Again, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to serve as your moderator. We do hope you'll join us at 12:30 for the Congressional District 2 position. And a reminder to please vote on November 4th. Thank you.